everyone, and welcome back to Purple Nude, a podcast. I am Stephanie Conti, and I'm here to bring you episode 70 with the lovely, the gorgeous, the beautiful Savanna Lanausse, whose username is currently a statement, and that statement is everyone looks old in the 60s.
I will
Savanna
explain.
Lanausse, everyone.
I will explain when we get more into the movie, but I stand by it.
You know, I can see it because already just thinking about like movies, from that time and stuff like that. Even if we think about like movies, like I think it's also just everyone always hired older people to play younger people, and they looked older.
I think it's the hairstyles.
The hairstyles
Everybody,
that make them look older.
specifically in the early 60s, everybody had like these pin curls. Everyone
Yeah,
had old lady hair, and I think it just aged everybody very quickly. Um, a lot of the outfits were, I think they all just look like older women. And I'll tell you later, but one of the characters in this movie she was supposed to be like 19. She looked 35.
yep,
So
yeah.
I don't
It's
know.
also I think I call that the Grease syndrome. The movie Grease, where everyone's supposed to be like in high school. Tell me more, and they look 40.
Well, at least in Greece they gave him some good hairstyles, some
No,
good
but like,
clothing.
okay, maybe if you squint your eyes, maybe John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John would look maybe 20. But I know some of the what was it, the T-Birds? Was that little group? They were in their 40s.
They look geriatric. It was
They
not
had
good.
some of them had like chest hair and back hair in high school. Like that is how old they all looked.
Yeah.
Rizzo? Are you kidding me? Rizzo looked like a 40-year-old woman.
I think she was close, if we're going to be honest. I think she
Really?
was
I
close.
thought she looked old.
I think she was close to 40. No, I'm agreeing with you.
Okay. At first I was like, "What? No, yeah,
I
she
think
looked
the youngest
old."
person was John Travolta.
I think him and probably Olivia Newton-John were probably tied.
Yeah, probably. These everyone else just it wasn't working.
Yeah, it was just and oh, what was it? The beauty school dropout. Oh, she looked 35. It's like, "Oh, I don't know if I should do a beauty school." Ma'am, at this point you could have graduated high school 8 times.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
It wasn't working. I don't know.
It was yeah, I agree with that statement. And even looking back at like some of my favorite movies and stuff like that, maybe it was just people were born different back then. Like even like I think about like all of my crushes because all my crushes are dead. And thinking about them in their 20s, like Marlon Brando, dude, he looked 40 from the get-go, but a good 40, I might say.
I think
Dude,
just people were more mature looking. Even the most beautiful stars, Sharon Tate did look a lot older than her age.
she
Um,
did.
Audrey Hepburn at some points
Maybe
did look older.
was it the smoking and the alcohol? Was it that
You know what?
ravaging?
It really could have been because people were doing like 2 packs a day with a bottle of rum or whatever they were drinking. And
Yeah.
some of the hairstyles and the outfits just weren't doing it. I'm telling you.
And even like going into I think it wasn't until like maybe the 80s or 90s when smoking became a little less prevalent and stuff like that that
Yeah.
people started actually looking their age. Like I'll give you another example. My love, Jim Morrison. Do you know how old that he was when he died?
He was very young. Like, was he?
He was only 27. This
He
man
was.
looked 44.
Oh, he was part of the 27 Club.
He was part of the 27 Club. This man looked 44 at the
Yeah,
end of his life.
but that's because he was doing drugs forever.
Yeah, but even like high school photos of him, you would have thought like, "Oh yeah, this is a young lad who just graduated college." No, high school.
Right.
It was just there was just something in the water. Maybe not enough things and minerals in the water,
No
but
vitamins. Nobody was taking
no
vitamins
vitamins,
back then.
So it's just it really is interesting looking back and being like, and I think it's also like the Glee syndrome too, where everyone in Glee, maybe season one, oh yeah, they kind of look their age. By the time season two happened, everyone started going gray.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Don't
Oh
like
man,
it.
there was like one guy, a part of Glee, And he was no one talks about like about his history or anything like that, but it was crazy. Do you remember the one guy who was a part of Glee who was like found to be a part of like a child pornography ring and
Yeah,
then
he
he killed
killed
himself?
himself. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Dude, okay. Dude looked 40. He was 35 when he started the show.
Yeah, he looked
How are you going to
35.
hire people like that when you know you only have like 2 good years out of them before the fruit starts to turn?
I do wanna know though, like, why when you're doing shows about high school, why not try to get people that I know you can't sometimes hire actual teenagers, I get it. But why not hire people that at least are, like, in their early 20s?
Like I feel like a good example of that is like Euphoria.
Do you
Euphoria, you know,
know do you
a lot
freaking
of
know
people what?
that one girl is 29?
Which one girl?
The Hispanic one.
Oh yeah, Alexa Demi.
But she was, like either she was lying about her age or they, like, were pretending she was 23.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah. Well, a little fun fact, I won't name the name specifically, but when I worked on Reboot,
Okay. Ooh,
I was
gossip
I was
tea.
younger than all of the high schoolers being in the movie.
Were they at least close?
No. Well, okay, one of them was. One of them was. But the others, I literally thought one of them because she had played I'm not going to name names because I don't want to reveal ages and stuff like that. Um, but one of them actually pulled a prank on me. I thought I
Okay.
was working with a 14-year-old and I found out she was 33.
Oh my god.
Cute girl, love her. But I actually thought she was like 14.
But is there
And
a
when she told
specific
me like
reason they do that? Like,
well,
I'm genuinely
she just
asking.
looked young. She just looked mad young. And her character was a little bit harder to cast. I will say it's a little bit like it was a very niche character to find. But essentially, like it was very shocking. And then the other one who I'm like, oh yeah, like she's probably like my age. No, 6 years older than me. You
Wow.
know, things like that. And like I think majority of there was only one of them who was my age, and the other three were almost 10 years older than me. Some of them, the other girl over more than 10 years.
Let me ask you a question.
Uh-huh.
Do you think they are now casting or they do I don't know what the excuse was in the 70s. I don't think there was an excuse. But now, do you think we are still casting older people because the people that are in the age range of the characters are actually too young looking?
No, I think it's more so dealing with like for example, like I'll just use a show like Euphoria. There's a reason why high schoolers aren't like or high school age people aren't picked out for a show like that.
Oh, no, I totally understand. But I mean like not even around the age range, like 19 or 20-year-olds. Is there a specific reason not just Euphoria, but shows don't do that in general?
I'm going to be real with you. Yes, and I'm pretty sure the reason why is because they don't want to deal with any sexual assault issues of
Okay.
potential minors and things like that. And like just in case anything happens. And then also keep in mind too, if let's say you have even if you hire someone who's 17 and they turn 18 during production, you know, it's then there's a huge difference in now, okay, like now we got to go from billing them as a child to billing them as an adult and switching over into that process.
No, I understand. That makes sense.
Yeah, and just also like because if you notice, there's it, our generation because you and I are both 23 is TikTokers. Like
Yeah.
that is the viable source of actors these days.
I was just thinking about how there's not a lot of actors that are our age. I can only name maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah, like there's not a lot of actors our age or they're just slightly older. Like maybe in like the 26 to 28 range, but I think it's honestly because of maturity. Because no production wants to hire like you know it used to be like oh let's include this big star we don't care how much no people just don't have time to waste time anymore so no one's going to hire you know the actress who's kind of a diva you know what I mean
Okay. Yeah.
yeah and they could be you know immature for their age still you know you and I are definitely like old ladies trapped in a body I will say that because you and I would rather watch friggin' Humphrey Bogart movies than go party. Like,
But
let's be honest, we're
love
just two
each
old ladies. We're
other.
just two old ladies in younger bodies. I'd say I'd have a middle-aged body, but you're in your a body for your age.
That's why
But
we love each other. That's why we
yes,
found each
we're
other.
we are the golden girls among TikTokers our age.
Oh god.
But yeah, I think that's honestly why. And because keep in mind, like even if you have a small production, let's say if you do hire a 16-year-old to play a 15-year-old, there's usually over 100 people to a crew. You can do background checks, you can do all that, but you're never going to be able to know fully if that person is going to be protected,
Yeah, you're right.
especially if like, even I've had creepy interactions on set and I was, 21. It's just you never know, and it gets a lot more complicated the closer you are to that 18 digit. I mean, I think regardless of a person being creepy at 18, it's also creepy at 21,
Oh
19, and
yeah, oh
things
yeah,
like
yeah,
that
yeah.
too. But I think that's why we don't see it. It has to do with maturity and also liability.
I gotcha.
Mhm.
I gotcha.
Yeah, so that's my little take on it just from experience and whatnot. But I think for the movie I worked on in the case, it was just because of honestly, they picked the girls because they were great actresses. I think
Okay.
that's why they were great to work with. They were very professional and everything like that. And I think that's why they were picked and they didn't go for someone younger.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think. Oh, so I've heard that you have completed the Chris Chan saga. A few
Uh,
episodes ago, I asked you about it. And what are your final thoughts right now?
it's one of those things like uh, it's very interesting to find out about, but then you kind of leave it. You're just like, I could have done without that 500 hours of footage. Um, it the first thing I thought of when I finished it is how much of a nicer place the internet is now. Believe it or not. I feel like if
Yeah.
he or I'm sorry, if she was on the internet now,
Mhm.
um, they wouldn't have gotten so much backlash and bullying because I feel like however many years ago, it was just a free for all horrible place to be. Um, so I was very amazed to see like how much the internet has like come. And it was one of those things where like I really should just this should be a case study. Like some professionals need to take this documentary and like study it and help people from this because I was just like, wow, this is crazy. And I felt bad. It was one of those things where it left me with like, this is a very sad story. Just with some crazy moments in
It
between.
it
Like we're
definitely
watching like the
felt like a
decline of
train
somebody.
track like, it felt like a accident, train crash, whatever, that slowly rolled off a hill and then hit an orphanage, like, everything that could have gone wrong went wrong along the way, and it's such a unique and honestly one of the most, like, wide scope documentaries out there because it literally covers, like, you feel empathy for this person. You feel disgust towards this person. You
Yeah,
feel
there's a
every
lot.
single emotion towards this person. And it really is like a major spectacle. And I totally agree where this needs to be studied. This is like, I'm telling you right now, this is the next Stanford prison experiment in terms of things that you learn in psychology and whatnot, because it just provides so many viable, cause and effects for so many different things.
Yeah, I agree. It was a lot. Um, I haven't learned my lesson though because I'm starting a Trisha Paytas documentary now.
Oof, oof. I mean, you know,
That's
I th
another
I
person I
that
think.
that'll be a little bit easier, I think. I think that'll be a nice break.
I think I yeah, because I don't have nice feelings towards her right now.
It's personal. We're H3
We
fans.
are. It's very personal for us. So I am
Papa
also
bless.
interested. I'm interested in seeing because the documentary is about just the progression of her and some of the claims she makes about her life, whether they're true or not, and just if she
But
contradicts
there
herself.
it is once again, someone who's on the internet for so long that they become a spectacle, and now it's like because here's the thing. if there wasn't video of so much video of her and so much repetitiveness of the videos of her, we would never see. Like we would never see these kind of, kind of gray areas to her story, cuz like if you watch a video of her telling about a story, right? You're going to think about that story and then maybe if she tells later on, and if it's at least close to it, you're going to be like, "Oh yeah, I remember hearing that." But it's how the minor details changes over time and stuff like that, and how things become lost or misconstrued and
But
stuff
I
is
think
very
that's why she gets away with saying certain things because there's just too much of her out there for
yeah,
everybody to keep up.
for sure. And once again, we have a huge scope in terms of how things like that may affect, gender identity and things and all those different concepts too. I think we are in a renaissance of psychology right now because of social media.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see all of this, and I don't know. A lot of it just is very a lot of mental illness on the internet. That's all I'm gonna
Oh,
say.
for sure, for sure. But I think it is important to watch, but not as important as it is, and this is just a general PSA, get your mental health checked. Seriously. You might think you're okay, but ooh, we all have our little demons, and you don't need them sneaking out at the wrong moment. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Go get a therapist. I don't have a coupon code,
I
but
don't have a coupon code.
good luck finding one and do so and take care of your health because it is so important.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Very
and
much
I it's
agreed.
I think that's another, even though it's a little off topic, so many people are like, "Oh yeah, gotta get to the gym, gotta creatine, gotta vitamins, gotta do all that." And it's like it almost seems such a stupid approach, but I kind of want to go, have you asked yourself how you're doing lately? Cuz you should. I feel like
No, yeah.
there's so many new ways to cope with existing nowadays that people get lost and forget that they're human. One of the things that I started doing, and it's really changed a lot for me, because I've just been asking myself randomly, because sometimes, especially with it being in school and doing a podcast and trying to do work and things like that, I've become very lost. And one thing I've been doing is just asking myself, "Hey, that movie you just watched, what was it about?" Because I will literally finish a movie and I'll ask myself that, and I'm like, um, you
Yeah.
know, and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Holy crap!" Like I'm not living in the moment. So I've been doing that, every so often, especially when it comes to like schoolwork, being like, "You just read the textbook. What do you remember?" Because sometimes I'd be like, "Gee, bud, don't know," you know, on a rough night. But that's something, a quick PSA. Just start asking yourself randomly, "How you doing, brother?" Just look
Yeah.
in a mirror, be like, "How you doing?" Or, "Hey, that thing we just did 5 minutes ago. Can we recall it?"
But I also think there's a big difference between like mental health check and like self-care. I think the two get confused a lot. Like self-care is what you do to keep up, like keep you calm, keep you good. Mental health is like doing things that like specifically like help your mental health. So like going to see a therapist, having your alone time. Because I see that a lot on the internet. And I
Yeah.
find it very interesting now the two are like synonymous. When really like
I think they go hand in hand, but I don't think that they are
they're
the
not the
same
same
thing.
thing, no.
Like, how many times do I tell you I'm gonna go out in the sun for a little bit so I don't get depressed? Like, I think that's self-care. That's self-care. But if I was actually like depressed, and I do it because I don't go outside. Like, let me make it clear, I don't leave my room. So I literally, like, I do school from my room and everything. So I do it as a factor of me actually getting in vitamins. So when I say, I don't mean to be like rude to people who have depression, it's like, oh no, I don't want a vitamin D deficiency, you know?
No,
So,
that's
but I think things like that is more like self-care, but that coincides with, your mental health too.
Yeah, but
And
I mean, like, if you need to go see a therapist, bud,
yeah, if you're
'cause
hearing voices, I'm sorry, there's not enough bath bombs
there's
to
not
take that
enough
away.
face masks for that.
You don't
Yeah.
have enough Bath and Body Work candles. You do not have enough bath bombs, and you do not have enough essential oils to get rid of that.
No.
I wish. I wish the world would be so much a better place
Be
if we
easier.
were able, if it was that easy, if capitalism was the answer to everything.
Yes.
Ugh, I think that was a good conversation. I hope
We
you guys
needed
who are
that.
listening are not going, "Oh my god, just talk about the movie." I hope you guys are like, "Yeah, that was refreshing and well needed," because it was, and if you don't think it was, get out of here. Sorry. We're
You don't
recording at night.
belong here.
We're recording at night again now because we were recording morning, so we're a little bit I personally am a little bit slower in the morning in terms of mental agility. At night, I'm like a friggin' cat. I'm ready to go. So I feel like I get to exercise that part of my brain now.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's get into the movie.
Please introduce the movie to us, madame.
I will. Okay. So, Peeping Tom came out in 1960. It's directed by Michael Powell. It is about a young man who murders women using a moving camera to film their dying expression of fear. It stars Anna Macy, Moira Shearer, Maxine Audley, and uh, the German name. So let's see if I
Karl
can do.
Heinz Bohm.
You were ready for that one, weren't you?
I knew I
Carl
like
Heinz,
I take all of
the foreign
the
names.
yeah, I take all of the because even if I don't care if I'm wrong at this point. I'm doing my best with an accent, you know?
Karl-Heinz Bong. So quick fact, if you're wondering why you've probably never heard of this movie or why it fell through the cracks, this movie came out the same year as Psycho. So it definitely got overshadowed a lot.
And
And
also, it was banned from the UK for a little bit.
it was.
It premiered for like a week or so, and people were like, "Shut it down, pull it out. This is intense," you know.
Yeah.
So I think I'm happy. Like it actually became like from the '60s up until like modern times, it became really hard to even find this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to ask you because I have a feeling of how you discovered this movie. How did you find out about this movie? Because I had never heard about it before. I knew of the director, but not this movie.
So I every Halloween I watch my favorite movie reviewer online, Chris
Chris
Stuckman.
Stuckman.
Yes, he
I
did a
knew it
review
because
on it.
I looked up the trailer and then a Chris Stuckman video came up of him talking about it. I was
It's
like, oh,
literally
I
the
know
only
this girl
one.
likes Chris Stuckman.
It's the only one. And
Yeah.
he was talking about it. I don't remember. It's an older video, so it must have been a few years back. But so I saw it and I really liked it. It's
Hmm.
different. It's new. Um, but nobody knows about it. It
Yeah.
seems like.
And I definitely agree. I think, and I think it's funny that it became overshadowed by Psycho when considering that they came out the same exact year, they do have a lot of striking overlaps in some
Sure.
areas. You
Yeah.
know, not super specific areas, but like more general broad, you know, categorization of, some themes that happen in this movie. So for me, I found this film very interesting. And before we go, oh, what did you think about? Oh, blah, 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 spoiler, all things like that. There is something I found out because I was looking up about this movie and I was like, yeah, like I agree. Why is no one talking about this movie? So there is one person who's talked about this since it's come out, and that one person is Martin Scorsese. He
Martin
loves this movie.
Scorsese. All right, let's see what he has to
Martin Little
say.
Scorsese, because Michael Powell is one of his favorite directors because one of his favorite movies of all times is The Red Shoes, which was also directed by Michael Powell. And we even reviewed a previous Michael Powell film not too long ago, and that film is The 49th Parallel.
Yep.
So I was doing some research because Martin Scorsese was talking about it, blah, 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 blah. And I saw a name that I thought was familiar when I saw Michael Powell's like IMDb, and it was his wife's name. He ended up, while he was probably in his 60s, married a 20-year-old
Oh
by the
God.
name of Schumacher, who was
Schumacher.
Scorsese's editor for like the past 40 years.
Wow. Would you look at that?
I was surprised. So apparently, Scorsese met Schumacher. I think her name is Martha Schumacher. I'm going to confirm that right now. But essentially, yeah, she fell in love with him when she was 20 and he was like already in his 60s because he died in the 90s at like 80 years old. So
Wow.
she met Scorsese from a little like film camp that in college, and they started working close together, and then he ended up getting to meet Michael Powell. She introduced the two, and she married him.
Very cool.
But you could definitely see like a lot of, not only now does it make sense that you can see a lot of Michael Powell, you know, inspiration, like especially with the use of the color red between the red shoes and this movie,
Oh,
and
yeah.
especially in films like Goodfellas, you know, and she also did edit Goodfellas as well. She's like the queen of editing.
Love that.
But Thelma Schoonmaker is her name. Schoonmaker. Yeah, she actually has won 3 Oscars. She won for, editing Raging Bull, The Aviator, The Departed, but was also nominated for The Irishman, Hugo, Gangs of New York, Goodfellas, and Woodstock. So she
Queen.
yeah, she's killing it. But I think it's so funny how like she married, you know, him, and now here's Scorsese having a direct connection to one of his favorite film directors of all the time and just being able to, you know, converse with him and things like that. I thought that was pretty interesting.
He wanted it that way, of course.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I will say as time goes on, you know, it's I feel like especially as we review movies and we find out certain directors really like them, the allure of these directors kind of fade away. You know what I mean?
I understand. Yeah, you can see a
Like
lot of people just drawing connections from other people.
after
Um,
Rocco and his brothers, Raging Bull isn't as astronomical as it seems, you know?
yeah, I agree.
So I
Yeah.
thought that was just very, very interesting and mighty convenient for Martin
Mighty
Scorsese.
convenient. I have a grudge with Scorsese, but that's a story for another time.
I don't want to dig up old wounds. I apologize.
The next Scorsese film, I'm gonna have to bring it up, just so you know.
That's fine. That's fair and valid. So without spoiling Savannah, what are your overall thoughts on Peeping Tom?
I like the movie a lot. I think the movie is very character driven. There's not a lot that happens in the plot per se. I'd say the beginning is very strong. Um, the main character is very unique in a way. And I'll get into that. And I really just like watching somebody that you know is bad and having, for me at least, just very little sympathy for him.
Yeah,
He's not like they give him a backstory and stuff, but it's still kind of like, that doesn't excuse you.
yeah,
Um, I thought a lot of the technical stuff was really good. They had a lot of good shots in it, and it's a movie about a filmmaker and filming itself. I would hope so, but I really like a lot of the techniques they use, and a lot of the themes they talk about. I thought were very very they took a big risk back then because
oh
it
for
is
sure.
literally about, like, voyeurism and they talk about a little bit in the beginning, I don't know if you noticed, you probably did, because you know more than me. I don't know
Don't
why I
say
always
it
tell
like
you,
that.
though. I don't know why I always say this thing to Stephanie where I'm just like, "I don't know if you noticed," and I don't know why I do it because she'll be like, "Yeah, and did you notice this minute thing that has a connection
Yeah,
to another
I'll be
movie
like,
we've
"Oh yeah,
seen?"
did you recognize this, you know, person's face on screen for 3 seconds? They're the whole plot of the movie," or some stupid
Yeah,
thing
I'll
like
be
that,
like,
you know?
never would have saw it.
Sorry.
So, I don't know why I say that, but there's a point anyway, there's a point in the movie where it kind of talks about society's role, and the movie is very psychology heavy, so I feel like there's a lot of really cool themes. It was very, ahead of its time for sure. Um, I'll get into the negatives later, but I to make a long story short, I would recommend this movie for sure.
Absolutely. I think it's honestly, and I think it's really funny how I do think this movie's really good. And it's wild considering this movie was like the end of Michael Powell's career. Like this dude had about like another 20 years of directing in him, but this film ruined him. Like,
Yeah.
he did not make another big budget picture afterwards. Everything, the red shoes and stuff like that were all beforehand. But I really there are some elements I kinda have a not a love-hate relationship, but I'll say, like, a seesaw relationship with this movie. Because what the movie has that is strong, it's really strong. But what the movie has that is kinda mediocre, it's definitely on the weaker side of some things.
I could see that. I can see
Like, for
that.
example, I really like overall, I really like the story. I really like the concept of things, but I do think that there were issues within execution, but mostly based on actors. And let's talk about that. I still recommend the movie. I still think it's very, very interesting, and it's really cool to see a movie like this so daring and so like even the ending. It's like, oh dang, they really went that far in the '60s. Some people were wild in the '60s, and kind of like it's kind of like a like during this time. I feel like there were a bunch of movies that were like, let's test the limits. And then they went like too far, and the world was like, no, back down. Because I feel like this movie, there was an Italian movie called Fist in the Pockets, centered around matricide. And even a movie like what I mentioned earlier, Rocco and His Brothers. Those were all '60s movies that really pushed the limit. And everyone was like, no, never again. Don't ever
Yeah.
do this again. Sit back down. So I like how but this is one that I feel like does slip the crack. Even though it is available now, it's available on Prime and stuff like that. It really does slip the cracks in terms of horror and thrillers. Um, let's talk about the acting. So we have here our main character, Mark Lewis, played by Karl Heinz Bohm. And honestly, looking at this guy, I thought this dude was Robert Wagner. I was like,
Right?
isn't that Natalie Wood's lover? Like, isn't that? Nope. That's what I got from him.
I liked him a lot because it's not one of those things where you're just like, "Oh, I would have never guessed he's so charming." No, this is the exact person you would think is doing this type of thing.
Yeah.
He was very awkward and very creepy about just even when he's not doing murdering of women, he's a very creepy and awkward person to interact with. He's not like social and charming like a lot of how film portrays serial killers nowadays.
Yeah.
This is the type of person you'd want to stay away from, which I liked a lot because you don't really see that a lot. Like if we're going to compare it to like Norman Bates just because they were in the same year. Norman Bates was okay.
He seemed like a sweet little lad in the
That's what I'm
beginning,
saying.
He's like,
Yeah, and
"Oh,
then you find out, he's
mother never lets me go to parties," it's things like that. It kinda seemed innocent and sweet at first, and then it turned sour, whereas with this guy,
this guy's carrying
it
on a
from the
camera all
get-go
day.
is like, "This dude is weird. This dude is the Dexter of the '60s," it kinda leads into that. I really did like him. I thought he was a little bit different, and I understand he was a little too stoic for me. He did some things right, but it also could be because of the interactions with other character. It just felt a little too stark. And remember, it's the '60s, you have all the women playing, ditzy young gals, and oh, I'm just looking for a tall, hot, dark, handsome fella. And it's just Jesus Christ. And so maybe that's what
I
caused
but I
that
do think
weird
that's
tight moments.
I think that's the problem though that you had this very creepy and awkward character and nobody would react to him. And I think that's where
Yeah.
they messed up. I think everybody would just like, "Oh, he's a great guy." The guy who's carrying around his camera really
He's a
suspiciously.
landlord. He can't do no harm.
Like
It's like he's
I
gonna
think if
kill you.
people
He's fantasizing about killing you.
I think if the characters around him were more realistic and not so trusting and like, "Oh, he's great." I think it would have really, really improved his character. But I think unfortunately, it is like you saying, it's a stark difference and it's not realistic. And I think they messed up with the other co-characters,
And
the
then you
background
had
characters.
like it was just so you have here Helen, right? Helen is one of the main girls. I don't understand why her. I don't Her name is Anna Macy. I don't understand why her. I would have thought they would have gone more with Moira Shearer, who's from the Red Shoes, to be more of the main female lead. I was surprised that they chose someone who I don't know. And this is gonna be a real vague reference. She reminds me of the sister from Twin Peaks that only appeared in one
Can't.
episode.
Ooh,
You know
whose
what I mean?
sister?
The one in the beginning in the pilot episode where she's just like chilling on the bed reciting really horrible poetry.
Oh my god. I don't even yeah, I know who you're talking about.
That was the only thing I could think of when I saw her. But
Dude,
it was
I don't
just too
I
too
agree with you.
much.
I think maybe they didn't because I how much older could she have been? The woman from the red shoes, I think, might have been.
She looked a well, because in her prime, Red Shoes was in the '40s. Red
So
Shoes was
yeah,
made in the '40s. So
okay.
she did look a little bit older for a part, but I really thought maybe they would have tried, going for someone because.
I mean, if they're talking about peeping toms, they what would have been so crazy to hire an actress in her 40s? Was that pushing it, you know?
Yeah, or like, and I also I do think the title is a little bit weird for a movie too, you know, because it says it's about like voyeurism. I don't really get the whole voyeurism message. Like, I would have thought maybe if he was stalking these women from afar and just recording them constantly. Yeah, but no, he's got the camera right in their face and they're like, "Which profile is the best?" You know? Like it doesn't feel like voyeurism. It feels more like a trick.
I think the voyeurism comes from, like, after he kills them when he's, like, rewatching in his little
Yeah,
creepy movie theater. But even
that's
I
true.
understand what you're saying, though, because when I think of Peeping Tom, I think of, like, somebody in the tree, like, waiting for the girl to undress, and that's not necessarily what was happening here. Um, but I do think I agree with you, the title could have been better, but I do think it was just him, like, hiding out his movie theater. Maybe that's where it came from.
Yeah.
Um, but I wished the characters around him were more realistic, especially the women. Especially I didn't think it made sense for the girl to be interested in him. This guy brought nothing to the table, if we're going to be honest.
Yeah, and she's like, "It's my birthday." And he's like, "I wanna go back to my room now." And she's like, "But it's my birthday." It's like, okay. Like,
Again, she
I
was supposed to be 19, didn't look 19.
you know, it's funny too because you could tell that they didn't put any makeup on her and, like, it didn't help, you know? Like, maybe doing her I because I if you notice her face compared to all the other actresses in this movie, she's the one that's most, like, barefaced. She doesn't wear any eyeliner, no eyelashes, or anything like that, and I'm wonder if they tried making her look younger by doing that, but I just don't think the way that character was written as well as the actress choice, not to say that she was a bad actor, but I it didn't mend well with the story and what you know, the
Yeah.
story needed.
No, and before I move on to the negatives, because there's not a lot, but there are some big ones. Um, what was I gonna say? I really liked I'm not gonna spoiler alert. Okay, whatever. It's 50 years ago. I don't know. Should we still be saying? No, we should. You're right. All right. I just had an internal conflict.
Okay, are you good?
Yes, I'm good. Spoiler alert. The one thing the best thing I think about this movie is the way he killed the women.
Yeah.
Specifically, the beginning is very strong. If you ask me, I think the beginning is probably the strongest part of the movie. I liked the way he killed the women. I thought it was very unique, and I liked the backstory of the character a lot. Those were the most interesting parts of the movie. Um, I wanted to know more, if I'm going to be honest. What were your some positives before we move to the negativos?
Before I would definitely say that the way it was filmed, the use of color, and also just, um, the main storyline I think is pretty great. The idea of the psychology and the overall character that Mark Lewis is pretty great. I also just want to go back and comment for people who played like Helen and Vivian and stuff like that. I think for Helen, the type of actress they should have gone for, what I feel like was missing was I don't think it was the wrong that she was a younger person. I think they needed a more nosy character, and this woman just didn't sell that. Like, I could imagine
Yeah,
Patty Duke being in that role and being very nosy about it and being very more childlike rather and, you know, not etiquette. She was still trying to be etiquette, but a little bit nosy, but like, "Oh, you're still cute," yeah," and things like that, and, like, it just I feel like maybe if a Joan Woodward type or a Patty Duke type had came in, then it would've mended better. Like someone with, bite to the character too and be like, "You're weird," and just just really give it to him. I would have think would have added a little something to that side.
yeah.
Um but yeah, I do really like the soundtrack, especially with Vivian when she's dancing and stuff like that. It reminds me of another actress, but I can't remember. But those are some of my positives. What are some of your negatives about this movie, Savannah?
So I found myself a little confused at some point. For example, I was a little confused on what he did for a job. Like I knew he was like photographing women at some point, and then he was working at like I didn't really, and they didn't explain a lot of his, like, day to day besides the
No, it
killing.
just kinda seemed like he was a photographer at night for, porno magazines and then worked on a set at maybe
Yeah,
like a cameraman because he wasn't calling the shots or anything like that. He constantly had a camera, he was constantly on set and everything like that. So it probably would have just been like maybe like a camera operator or something like that, but
okay.
I
I
I d I agree, it wasn't very specific.
But I think that's where the movie messed up is they were focused on the character, which it paid off, but the plot lacks a lot. Um, I thought it could have used we could have used some more about like his job, like the interactions he had. Because I thought whatever he was doing was very interesting. Like he was doing this at night. Um, I also didn't understand exactly why he felt the need to do this besides having a traumatic childhood. I don't know if it was for like some kind of gratification, just some ambitious means. Like I feel like the means to the end was very murky.
Yeah.
So I would have wished we had more clarification on that. And like I said, the characters, it just seemed like they either didn't make sense or they were there specifically for the main character to use them as a tool.
Mhm.
So yeah, I really wish personally there was more something more plot wise to grab onto besides just watching the main character. Because for me, I only watched the movie for the main character.
Yeah.
What about you?
I watched a movie for the main character as well as the overall directing of it. I really, like I
Okay.
said, like the use of colors and everything like that, and I really liked the set design and
Yeah,
the
for
way things
sure.
were set up. I thought that was fantastic. And even just like the way the city looked and stuff, it really gave me the vibe, I'll say, that it felt more like a play recorded rather than, and I don't know, maybe if the sets reminded me of like something that's been turned into a play or whatever, but I definitely felt more like it was like a Broadway play with the sets and everything like that. And I like that design because it went well with kind of this, starlight Hollywood, kind of undertones that this film has to it. In terms of the downfalls of this movie, I gotta say, like I said before, I thought sometimes the main character was a little bit too static due to his interactions with the other characters. I also agree with you completely that what compels him to do this entirely, I wish was maybe thought more. Like, I don't know if this was this is all I know, this is all I know what to do in life type of thing after his father, or was this a fetish thing? Like, I wish kind of someone just said it at some point, you know?
That
Like,
the peeping tom would have been a lot more made more sense if
yeah,
it was something
exactly.
like
But
that.
maybe scenes got cut out, maybe scenes weren't cut out for whatever reason. And then overall, I I was really surprised with this movie because I did not like the dialogue well. The dialogue lacks compared to other Michael Powell,
Okay.
films.
I could
Like, when you
definitely see
compare
that.
the 49th Parallel to this movie, it honestly feels like it's from 2, obviously, they're 2 different agendas, I will say, 2 different types of, cinemas, but it really is stark in terms of quality.
Yeah. I mean, I got the feel while watching the movie that they were trying to be like extra careful because of the subject matter. Like, for example, when he was talking about what his like the experiments that his dad was doing, he would use words like, "Oh, I didn't tell you what else he did to me." And there was never like when you listen to the dialogue, it's never clear.
Yeah.
Like there's no clarification in the dialogue. A lot of it is very like short and very like I don't know how to explain it. Very 60s, very cliche. Like a lot of it wasn't great, and I agree with you. I feel like they were like walking on eggshells almost, you know?
Yeah. And it just the dialogue was just so it was just too much, Once again, maybe it was playing into that old Hollywood type of thing, but it was very theatrical. Oh yeah, and you had Moira Shearer trying to be a little young Anne Margaret, doing her little
Oh yeah,
dances
what
and
was
stuff,
that?
and it just went on too long. The pacing of this film was not like I really enjoyed the beginning and the end of this film. Everything else just kind of blurs too much in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, it's slow.
Um, if I honestly will say, I don't know if you've seen this movie before, but honestly thinking about it, this movie does. Oh, I I know why I'm making these connections in my head. Okay. The reason why I thought Robert Wagner was because there's a movie that came out beforehand. And I feel like this movie that I'm about to mention does what this movie did wrong. And that movie, and I don't know if you've seen it before, it's called A Kiss Before Dying. It's from 1956. Have you ever seen
No, I
it?
haven't seen A Kiss Before Dying.
Oh my god, it's so good. It's so
Okay.
good. It was honestly like it was so if it's good and I buy a book on it, it's good. It's really good and it's even more underrated than Peeping Tom. A Kiss Before Dying stars Robert Wagner as a college student who resorts to murder to marry an heiress. And it had that type of
Ooh.
like it's a good film, Savannah. And it had what I feel like Peeping Tom was missing because Robert Wagner really sold it. And even like the murders and stuff like that, I think Peeping Tom does the murders and everything like that well, but it needed to watch A Kiss Before Dying in terms of the other characters surrounding and everything as well. So if you like Peeping Tom, I think you'll like A Kiss Before Dying even more.
Very interesting. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, it was just really like, oh, and I'm an idiot. And I mentioned Joan Woodward, like, I'm trying to recast this movie. I'm like, I know the perfect casting. Meanwhile, Robert Wagner and Joan Woodward were in this movie. Jesus. But yeah, so that would be that would be my biggest flaws with this movie. But what I do think this movie has fantastic backbones though.
Yeah, for
Like this
sure.
movie, like the root of this movie, the plot of this movie, and in terms of sequencing, it all works fantastic, but
Yeah.
there's not enough information. And sadly, the side characters did not carry the movie.
No, definitely not. I I mean, I also don't really understand why it was banned
I think
because it was very
because
vague. Besides, like even the murder, like it was all very vague to me. I don't know if it was just the subject matter, which was also vague.
I think honestly, it's probably the ending because I keep in mind, like, I don't think suicide was a big thing to incorporate in movies back then.
You're right, maybe not. It was
So
60.
yeah, so that's why I think the ending for this was probably, you know, the ticker for that. Or maybe even just at the time, the concept of the fact that here you have psychology, you're giving empathy to such an evil character who is just going on and being this, cinematic Jack Ripper type character. I think maybe that's why, but compared to Psycho, it's tough because Psycho, I do think, is a little bit more aggressive considering you do teeter on the incest corner. You do teeter on a little Chris Chan documentary
Stop.
with Psycho. But with Peeping Tom, I think also just I'm just gonna say it, the Brits were a little too tidy up back then,
They were uptight,
you
probably.
know?
Yeah.
So I think that's why. And maybe because also it came from, one of their more celebrated directors to then release a movie like this. Maybe it was like, oh, we can't have him represent England, you know?
Oh god. I mean, yeah, you're right. We are talking about what, 60 years ago?
Don't make me do yeah, wow. Ooh, long ago.
Yeah.
Before your time.
Yes, yes, yes.
But yeah, so I do think like overall the backbones for it. And honestly, when you consider other films during this time, that aren't Hitchcock, it works. It works
Yeah.
for its time.
Yeah.
And I honestly think and like I feel like every time we find a movie, I always end up being like they could remake that. Although I'm the one person that's like stop remaking stuff,
No,
I will
I think
say
they could
this
do this
could be
better.
done today
Yeah.
because what would have helped this movie is if we got to see a little bit more.
For sure. Yeah, I totally agree. We need more. I'd be down for a remake.
Yeah. My favorite part of this movie though is the ending.
Oh
Not
yeah.
only because kind of was a twist in the end where it's like, oh, he's making this thing so he could just watch it all in the end and make his movie. And it's like, no, like the movie is like supposed to be about his life and about him ending his life and things like that. I really liked the way the effects and everything like that when he's just running and there's all the different cameras from each side just taking photos of him as he's running towards his death. I really, really like that. But I still agree that it's like, yeah, that was a cool film scene, but why though? you
That's what
know?
I'm saying, like, no clear motives besides, like, I mean, I guess he was a tortured man, but, like,
Maybe
I
if
don't
it was like
know.
said like, I have to carry out my father's mission or something like that. Why did I sound like Matt Berry. That was the worst Matt Berry impression of all time. But maybe if it had a little something like that, maybe be like, "Oh, okay."
No, there was no reason for this,
Did
like,
we also ever learn how like the father died or like did he have any like did his father die or something like that?
I mean, I would assume so.
I know he said his father did die, but I don't know how. If maybe they had said like, "Oh, like when my father was doing experience on me, he died and I had to watch it and edit the film." Maybe it's like, "Okay,
Oh,
you
Lord.
know,
No, like, the film is I think it's a little too vague, I think we and I don't know if it was just, like, we can't add that because it's 1960, and I think maybe they're already pushing the limits, but there was a lot of things that just could have used more information.
I do have a little fun fact for you."
Oh, love it. Let's hear it.
Another reason why people didn't like this movie was because in the old videos of Mark when he was younger with his father and stuff like that, reality is that that was actually um, Michael Powell and his son in real life.
Oh my god.
So
With
a
the lizard?
lot of people like the with the lizards and everything like that, putting the lizard on the kid and stuff, like that was Michael Powell's actual son. And a lot of people did not like that because, people thought films were really real at the time and they thought it was child abuse.
Alright, well, did he clear that up?
Yeah, like even his son was like, I laugh at it. He was like, that was fun to film with it. I had a lizard crawl on me. He's like, I faked cried. And you could tell it's horrible acting. I mean, the kid was like 4, you know? So it was, I think that was the reason why too, because they were like, "Oh my god," and he abuses his own son to be in his movies and stuff. And even as an adult, like Michael Powell's son said, "Yeah, no, that's really laughable because I had a great time doing that as a kid with my dad."
Okay, so no, yeah, that does make sense, though. It does
Yeah.
make sense.
So overall, Savannah, what is your final rating of this movie as well as would you own it on DVD?
So I am going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. I love the main character. I will watch it for the main character. I will watch it for like color use. I like the ending. I like some of the scenes in between, and I would own it. I would own it. I would like to have this movie. I don't think it's super rewatchable in the sense that you could rewatch it every year, but I can see myself maybe watching it like every 2, 3 years. So I would own it. I definitely recommend it, but a 7.5 for sure.
Okay. I think I'm going to go lower than you. I'm feeling more like a 6.7. And the
Okay.
reason why for me is because I think about would I want to watch this movie again? Yes, but not for a while.
Yeah.
Would I also recommend this movie to people? It's a yes, but. Yes, but if you like classic horror. Yes, but if you are interested in filmmaking. To the average person, I probably wouldn't recommend this movie just because that middle
Okay.
drags.
That's
So
fair.
that's where because and for me, the best moments for it were, the beginning, the introduction, the ending, and maybe the first minute of that Anne Margaret tribute. But other than that, it's just the dialogue and also I think it's because I really loved like 49th Parallel. This was a pretty big letdown because I felt like what his strengths were in other movies were really weak here.
Okay.
So I'd give it a 6 point. What did I say? 6.4, 6.5?
You said 6.7.
I said 6.7. Dang. I'll meet in the middle now. 6.6. But honestly, I think if you do like this movie, you gotta check out A Kiss Before Dying.
Yeah, I'm gonna
That
check
it's
it
a
out.
banger. But yeah, overall, it was still enjoyable. It was still enjoyable. It was still interesting to see a movie be this daring during its time, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, and it's cool because I like being able to know a movie like this that, like, you know, people don't know. I enjoy finding movies like that. I enjoy being that person that's not, like, snobby about it, that's like, "Oh, you've never seen Peeping Tom?" Like, I'm not gonna be like that. I'm gonna be like, "Oh, you should check out this. No one's ever heard of it, but it's just a secret between you and me," you
It's a
know? Like, I
secret.
like I like that type of interaction. So
I think even with its flaws, it deserves some recognition. I think it
oh,
deserves a little bit
absolutely,
more
because like I said,
attention.
the overall, like, the biggest things about this movie is that it has a fantastic backbone. You can't say that for every movie, even good movies. It's just there's too many, in my opinion, little things that end up hindering it. If
Yeah.
we had maybe better dialogue, stronger female leads, I think it would have been so much better because the directing and the overall character structure of our main character was fantastic. I
Mhm.
think it would have brought it up a lot more if we had given a different female leads for it.
Absolutely agree.
So yeah, I got nothing else to say. Do you?
Nah, we said it. What's up for next week?
For next week we have the classic Suspiria.
Every time I want to say Suspiria, I think of it in like a Dracula accent. I don't know.
Suspiria.
Yeah. Doesn't that make more
I
sense?
is what?
Doesn't that make sense though when you think of I think of like Dracula saying it.
Well, it's not like a Romanian film or Transylvanian film,
I
and
don't
it's not
know. The
maybe
name.
the name of it. Yeah, I could see that. But every time I think of Suspiria, I think of the theme. Like, have you ever heard the theme to Suspiria?
I have not.
Oh, it's whack. Oh, you've never seen the have you seen the movie?
No, no, no,
Oh,
no.
oh,
I've
this
seen
will
clips of
be
the remake and I did not like
this
it.
this will be interesting for you. One of the most interesting elements of that movie is the soundtrack. And do you remember when we were making The Gathering? Which, by the way, if you haven't heard, Stephanie Conti's The Gathering is available on YouTube. Has been for a while now. You should check it out. A little audio drama that we did. Do you remember when I was making The Gathering and in the crystal ball scene, there's like you hear the voices and stuff like that on a low tone?
Yeah.
That is inspired by Suspiria because of the soundtrack, and
Very
you will
cool.
understand why the minute you hit play. So let me know when you get to that part.
Sure, for sure.
And if anyone like right now, I'm because it's very for some reason this soundtrack they chose was like more rock and roll esque, and right now I'm just like headbanging to the soundtrack right now in my own head. So you got to let me know what we think about that, or what you think about that rather.
Absolutely. I am pretty excited to see this movie.
Yes, but overall, as always, thank you so much for listening, and always a shout out to Homeboy James and Sensei David. And if you would like to know how to get a little shout out at the end, check out our Patreon link down below. See, I didn't say Redbubble this time. Check out our Patreon link down below. We've also been killing it on TikTok. I'll just say it. We've been killing it on TikTok. So all our TikTok links are down below as well. Savannah makes videos and has been focusing more on spooky content for the season, and
Halloweeny.
I just do whatever I want on there. I'm just like, oh yeah, I'll do this, and then next day I'm like, oh yeah, I'll talk about
It's a
horror
surprise
next.
every day.
And next day I'm like, I got a new Kevin Smith book in, guys. Let me show it to you. So check us out on our social medias and stuff like that. And yeah, next time you guys will hear us, we will be talking about Suspiria. Until then, bye
Suspiria.
bye.
Bye.